Good morning, everybody. My name is Jenny Kent. I'm the Executive Member for the Environment and Climate Emergency, and this is the public decision-making session at 10 a.m. on the 15th of October. Welcome everybody here and welcome everybody online. First of all, could I ask if anyone's got any declarations of interest? Two matters arising. No. Likewise, I don't, and I'm going to approve the minutes of last time. I don't think any of you were here, so nobody's got any representations to make, so I shall sign those. Very happy with those. Any apologies? And if I could just at this point go around the table and ask people to introduce themselves, just so that everybody understands who everybody is, even though some of you are not here for both items. I'm Jenny Kent, this is Louise.
I'm Louise Cook, I'm the Democracy Officer. I'll be taking the notes today.
My name's Matthew Pawson, I'm the Environmental Health and Trading Standards Manager.
I'm Claire Fong, Interim Director of City Development, and apologies for my tardy arrival.
No problem.
Good morning, Paul McCabe. I'm the Council's York Green Streets Manager.
Wonderful, thank you. So the next item is public participation. I think we have one person, Councillor Waller, who's wanting to make representations about the tree planting protocol. You have 3 minutes, Councillor Waller. Do you want a warning at 30 seconds? Or I think sit wherever you're most comfortable. It doesn't, wherever you're happy.
Is it using that microphone? Right.
Would you like a 30-second warning, Councillor Waller, or are you well-timed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Executive Member. I have submitted in writing a number of specific issues in response to the report, but there are a few points that I'd like to emphasise in the time that I have this morning. It's important that residents' associations and in specifics of Foxwood Lane, that Foxwood Residents Association and the nearby Rugby Club are involved in the final decision as part of a broader strategy. Indeed, has been suggested that the boggy area on Herman Walk nearby might be a good location for tree planting. Public consultation before tree planting with clear indication about the locations and the full mature height of the tree. As the Woodland Trust says, the right tree in the right place. I know from personal experience there's a large London plane near my house and the verge is big enough to take that. It does, the autumn produce 3 green bin loads of leaves which I clear up from the footpath. We won't get into that today. Some ward committees had set aside tree planting, tree trimming budgets. However, in the case of Westfield, that's now been axed. But it was helpful to provide one-off funding for replacement and new street trees. So it would be helpful to have a flexible approach to tree management and the tree planting that can be restored. I'd raised the issue of Westfield Fen, where there were a number of trees cut down which residents have asked if they can be replaced. Professor Nicholas Spence, former Chief Executive Officer of Science City York, is now the Chief Plant Health Officer and Deputy Director of Plant and Bee Health at the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and has led on the study of tree disease and, importantly, tree resistance. So I think it's of particular relevance to ash dieback, which has hit so many trees locally recently. I'd also like to raise the point of the impact of LED street lighting. Despite raising this with officers on a number of occasions, these new taller lights are stuck into the canopy of trees, which leads to shading, and a number of nearby residents have written into the council specifically on the issues that this leads to footpaths being much darker, being a particular issue to older residents and disabled residents. So there does need to be consideration of the sites of new street lights and new trees so that we can maintain good lighting on the road for cyclists dodging potholes, but also on the footpaths which help people to remain active on them. The rest of the comments are in detail in the written submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waller. Those have been noted, and I'll do my best to address some of them when we come to this as a substantive item. Thank you. So item 4 is the food service plan. Matthew, can I ask you to introduce this?
Yeah, regulation of food safety across England is controlled by the Food Law Code of Practice. The Food Law Code of Practice states everything from officer competency through to inspection frequencies. Upon inspection of a food business, a score is awarded, and that dictates when the next inspection takes place. In order to ensure consistency across local authorities and to ensure that local authorities are compliant with the Food Law Code of Practice, there's a requirement for a food service plan. The food service plan describes how the local authority complied with the Food Law Code of Practice in the previous year and how it intends to comply with it in the forthcoming year. So that is what we've produced here.
Wonderful, thank you. Can I ask a little bit about the content? So you've been struggling, well, all local authorities have been struggling with the backlog from COVID.
Yeah.
And at the time of writing the report, you've made progress, and it was only a backlog in low-risk category Ds. But can you update me on where we are on that?
That's right, yeah. During COVID, inspection of category D premises was suspended. So local authorities have had to catch up the backlog. We've since successfully caught up with the category D inspections. What causes us a constant problem is the high business turnover in York. So we get a lot of new food business registrations, and a new registration requires that that business is inspected within 28 days of opening. So we do have a lot of additional visits on top that arise throughout the year, in addition to those on the plan.
But so we've actually cleared that backlog
Yes.
that's from the data printing. Okay, and in addition, we have the additional problems of the churn.
Yeah,
business
the
turnover.
category D backlog has been cleared. We will never be up to date as far as new registrations are concerned, because they're coming every day.
Yes.
So we always have a small backlog of what we call unrated premises, which are the new businesses.
And is that peculiar to York, the high turnover, or the large number of applicants?
It appears to be peculiar to York in that we have a high percentage of food businesses. We're very food business orientated, very touristy. So in comparison to our neighbours, we do have a much higher turnover of food businesses.
So more work.
Yes.
Yes, but still a very good outcome, so that's fantastic. And can you help me a bit with paragraph 3.4? You talk about, actually, no, not paragraph 3.4. The part about assisting businesses, how we deal with inquiries of people who are thinking of setting up.
Yeah, so operating in segregation from our regulatory activity, we offer an advice service to businesses. That advice is tailored to the business needs, so we either provide a generic inspection of the premises where we offer food safety advice and offer advice on how they can improve their food hygiene rating. In addition to that, we can offer tailored advice on specific high-risk food safety activities, such as backpacking or unusual cooking methods that appear to become more prevalent recently. So that's very successful. Businesses appreciate the advice that they're given, and year on year, the number of visits that we do is increasing.
So you've given more advice this year than last?
Yes, correct.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic, thank you. So what paragraph 3.4 does actually refer to is, in addition to all the regulatory checks that you have to do, you also, in the feedstuff establishments, check on some of the desirables, sort of commitment to carbon zero and
Yeah, we
modern
inspect
slavery.
feed businesses as feed is part of the primary production side of food safety. So you mentioned carbon there. We contract out our feed inspections to North Yorkshire Council, and as part of that contracting out process, there's a requirement that they consider carbon in the way in which they conduct their activities. So they try to combine visits and use their electric vehicles wherever possible.
And I think you've also mentioned that they, obviously not detailed, but they do a survey, they keep their eye out for instances of modern slavery and things like that.
Yeah, food businesses seem to be quite a magnet for modern slavery. So as well as visiting farms where you get fruit picking and other opportunities for labour on the farms, we find unusual circumstances in a lot of our other mainstream food businesses like takeaways and other evening premises. So we're always on the lookout for signs of something abnormal.
Thank you, that's good to hear. I'm very happy to approve this plan. It gives everybody in York, whether we live here, work here or visit, confidence in our food establishments and shows that the council puts a huge priority on public health. The message to the people of York is eat out in confidence that you are safe and you'll be well. So thank you very much to all the officers for the work that you're doing.
Thanks very much.
It's great to see. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'll excuse me.
So the next item is item 5, York Green Streets, progress and next steps. And we have Paul.
I'll just do a little introduction if that's all right,
yes,
and then hand over to
Claire,
Paul
thank
to
you.
technical. Is that okay? Am I?
That's still on my...
It's a general one.
It's just generally.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
New world.
Yes, so this report is brought to you today, Chair, as part of an important milestone in the Green Streets programme. We're inviting your steer around the initiation of further engagement in the sites for tree planting across the city. The administration set a commitment in the council plan to increase trees across the city by an additional 4,000. Green Streets has already had a successful planting season last year when the technically easiest sites, I'm sure people might disagree, easiest sites were identified and trees planted. There are considerable benefits of urban tree planting, not least well-being from access to green landscaping, but also urban cooling and urban canopy, which, given the particular relevance of global warming, will lead us to hotter and wetter summers. That canopy can be invaluable. Now, following a technical assessment of a number of sites, we've brought the report to you today to invite you to approve the next stage, recognising the principles of right tree, right space. Through the technical assessment, some of these trees will be simpler to install, others more technically difficult due to highways and design criteria. I'd like invite Paul to speak through the report in more detail, but this is to go to the next stage, with some trees being planted and others requiring further engagement. But before I do so, if I could just thank Paul and Richard for everything they've done for the programme. They've obviously been instrumental in planting trees across the city. So absolutely, thank you.
Thank you, Claire. So, just building on what Claire said there, obviously we've got the commitment within the council plan to expand York's tree canopy. Through this programme, a focus on urban tree planting of 4,000 trees. That's supporting things like the National Policy Planning Framework, for example, which is calling on cities to work together, planning authorities and highways and tree officers to work together to ensure that the right tree is put in the right place when we're trying to expand our tree canopy. So that's very much at the focus of our work. Way back in 2022, we were offered some external grant funding, which we seized upon, but it did make us work very swiftly within a very short time scale, within very restricted funding, to try and identify and map some opportunities where we might plant trees within York's urban area. That's formed the backbone of the York Green Streets planting initiative. If we'd had more time and more resources, we would have done things maybe differently, but we are where we are in terms of the identified sites that we've got. We employed or contracted landscape architect consultants to go around and assess the sites that was suggested by ward councillors, parish councils, schools, and internal teams, and we ended up with 64 technically feasible planting sites. Alongside the planting locations, the landscape architects also suggested the appropriate tree species for each location, based on the principle of right tree, right place. So that's what we've been working with. And as Claire then just rightly says, during the first year of York Green Streets, which was 2002-03-04, we did plant 2,500 trees across the city. A large number of those were in school sites, primary school sites, which is fantastic. And a large number also were in areas that we would consider to be a high priority for new tree planting, according to the Woodland Trust. This year, we are moving on to the more technically difficult sites, and the issue really around these locations is one of deliverability. All the tree planting we've been doing recently within York the vast majority of it has been dependent upon grant funding, external grant funding, so wholly reliant on external grant funding. That grant funding has limits. So the more technical sites that we're looking at, some of them do fall outside of those grant limits, so we know that they're not deliverable. And we haven't taken them for public consultation, quite rightly, because we don't want to waste people's time commenting on things that are not feasible, not deliverable. We do have a number of sites that we think would fit within the grant funding limits, and they're the ones we're currently refining and taking forward. And when I say taking forward, excuse me, what we've done this year is a really detailed consultation with a wide range of council teams. So the teams that we've got in the council, like ecology, archaeology, conservation experts. We've spoken to all the utility companies about what they've got in the ground and overhead, and we've applied the National Joint Utilities Group guidance to our planning. We've taken existing grey infrastructure like nearby houses, roads and pavements and cycle routes and what have you into consideration and planned accordingly around them. And we've spoken to highways teams because a large number of these sites are within a highway verge situation or location, and that makes things very, very challenging and expensive. So I just wanted to reassure you that we've done a load of due diligence around the planning of these trees, and it really just comes down to deliverability and the cost to deliver some of these sites. Our Borealis has been very closely involved in this as well. So the report, it sets out in some detail what some of the risks and opportunities of planting in these locations, particularly the highway locations. And from paragraph I can't remember. Have to look in the report. From paragraph 32 onwards, there's quite a lot of consideration around the various risks and mitigations we've put in around planting in a highway setting, because it's not straightforward, and it does need to be thought out very, very carefully. So what we'd like to do from this point in terms of next steps is move forward to try and test these locations in terms of market engagement with contractors about how much it would cost to plant in some of these locations. And we'd like you to approve that market engagement, bearing in mind or taking into consideration these risks and mitigations that are outlined in the report from paragraph 32. Alongside that market engagement, in terms of establishing the costs, which we can then use to obviously make funding applications, we will continue to engage and consult local residents where we think the schemes are likely to go forward. We're not going to consult on schemes that are obviously likely to fall out of and that's why we've not done a large-scale public consultation at this stage. We'd also like you to grant delegated authority to the Director of Development alongside the Director of Governance and the Director of, I can't remember, Finance. So that once we've got a costed programme, we can then swiftly move forward to a funding application and appoint contractors under that delegated authority, because we do want to deliver these sites before the end of March 2025, which is the end of the tree planting season this year. So that's what we're recommending as part of the report. I think I'll leave it there, and I'm happy to address any questions you've got.
Thank you, Paul. If I just begin by also thanking you and Richard for doing a huge amount of work in a very short space of time under quite difficult pressures. You know, the technical aspects have been, I know, complex, and I know you've had multiple conversations across the council departments, and I really appreciate that, because Fundamentally, this is so important as part of our climate adaptation plans on every level, and the point's made, we made a unanimous council-wide commitment to the climate in our declaration in 2019. We passed a motion last year pledging to reverse environmental destruction and wherever possible and do our best to improve it. But really importantly, for the people of York, trees are a key tool in how we will adapt to hotter summers, wetter weather, more extremes of heat and cold. And so before I do ask some questions and address some of the issues that Councillor Wallace raised, my strong message, both of thanks to you and your team, but to the people of York, is that please engage positively with this if you're asked, because the principle of right tree, right place has been spelt out throughout this report. The species, the size, the interaction with utilities and streetlights and cars, as Councillor Wallace mentioned, and I hope there's some reassurance has been gained from this report. But we really need these trees, and we need them in difficult places, and we need them in streets where people are living. If you look at Medellin in Colombia, they've achieved a 4.5, nearly 5 degree urban cooling in a very hot country in times of extreme weather, just through planting trees and greening their streets, which is astonishing, you know, and very much embraced by the residents and the local people who actively take part in maintaining those trees and looking after these effectively linear gardens up the streets. And I would really hope that York will do the same and embrace this as a policy and as an approach. There are annoyances, there are leaves, there are things that come with it, but really this is bigger than all of that. And I know that people of York are concerned about the climate and can see for ourselves we're not strangers to flooding. And increasingly we're really not strangers to surface water flooding across the city, even far away from the rivers. So tree planting along streets brings multiple benefits, and I really hope that any consultation that does take place is approached constructively on both sides, including by councillors and residents. Just in particular, I should have raised that we did receive a written representation from one residents' association, but it didn't get here in time, but most of the issues were addressed by Councillor Waller. I have also spoken to ward councillors around that representation and in that area and assured them that consultation will take place, but I've also sent a strong message that this is really important, and where very difficult issues arise, we will reconsider, but we want to plant as many trees as possible. Is there anything you want to say directly which you haven't already covered in response to specific issues? I mean, I imagine, given all the consultation that you've done with utilities and highways, that you're not going to be choosing London Plains, which will grow in 30 years' time to interact with LED streetlights, and so we're not going to have that. Those are trees which were planted 30, 40, 50 years ago that we're having these current problems with. Am I right about that?
You are right about that. I mean, I'm sort of within the White Rose Forest Network. I engage with partners from across the region, different local authorities across the region, and several colleagues have commented on the fact that how much due diligence we've applied to this programme is way above and beyond what is normal practice. So I just wanted to emphasise that point, that we are considering all the risks, all the opportunities, and making sure we do plant the right tree in the right place. So I just want to reassure you that level of due diligence is being applied.
Thank you. Yes.
Could I just reinforce the timing point? So
Yes.
Tree planting has seasons. We were fortunate this year, weren't we, that the season was elongated slightly because of the wetter weather. We can't obviously guarantee we'll have an elongated tree planting season in March 2025. And so as well as the funding requirements, we actually have a tight window to get these trees into the ground so that they successfully grow and mature and turn into obviously much bigger trees. So the work that Paul's doing and Richard's doing to make sure market engagement and also resident consultation where those trees are identified, it's really important to try and do it as quickly as possible so we can actually let those trees grow.
Thank you, Claire. That is a really, really important point, and it's the one I woke up with this morning and I wrote down. So I did want to emphasise that even though this is really exciting and it's fantastic to be planting new trees and having this opportunity, there are still real challenges ahead of us. And Claire's just summarised them. Then obviously community engagement is a challenge. Historically, the council's arborist, has told me that quite often people want trees, but they don't necessarily want them
Close to their house.
near to them. So that could well be a challenge. I'm expecting that to be a challenge. The procurement is going to be a challenge. We learnt last year that there's not that many suppliers out there willing to do this sort of work and able to do this sort of work. So that will be a challenge. The grant funding will be a challenge, but we're pretty confident we will get what we ask for, but it will be limited. And the weather, as you said, we can't control the weather, and that really did upset the timetable last year, but we managed to get it through anyway. So I just, fantastic to remind me that there are these challenges ahead. Thank you.
But yes, and so again, I'd say to everybody listening and all ward councillors and residents, and this is a joint challenge. This is we all need to rise. It's not that you've got to meet this and we can, others need to meet us there and help with this. So you've got to act quickly, and I really hope everybody, I hope that message can go back to all residents that we really need this, and we've got to be as accommodating as possible. I can't stress that enough. We need to plant more trees, and we need. York actually has a very low tree canopy in comparison to other cities. We're something like 11% at the minute, and even capital cities like London and European capitals are up in the 20s. So although when you walk around places in our Strays, you may feel that we're woody, in where it matters, where people live and breathe, where the air quality is poor, where the heat gets intense when it's hot and the rain sits in the gullies when it's raining, that's where we really need the trees. I wish you good luck. I hope we get them all 1660 of them in the ground, or however many. I know some will have to fall by the wayside, but this is a fantastic project. Thanks very much. And the message to York is let's embrace this and make this easier for you than it might otherwise be. Thank you both. The next item is urgent business, of which I have none. I don't think I haven't had any representation, so thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you.